Man, I do not know what the deal is with this winter. One day it snows, then it rains, then it warms up and it all melts, then it snows again. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it probably looks like a total winter wonderland behind me, right? It's not. Yesterday it was raining. Like we got a little bit overnight. It's light and fluffy and it's sticking to the tree, so it looks like we've got a ton of snow, but we don't. Now the forecast is starting to look a little bit better for snowmobiling. It's starting to look colder, so hopefully in the next few days we're going to be getting out. Right now there's just not enough here. If I get my sled out, I'll be chewing up the lawn. Like, this winter has just been total bull. You guys are great though. 7,000 subscribers. I can't believe that. When I started the channel out, I thought I'd help out a few people that had an old 670 like me. I never really thought that many people would want to watch the videos I was doing. But apparently you do. So thank you guys so much for subscribing and for watching the channel. And I will keep trying to make videos that you guys find interesting and entertaining. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to today's video. Listen, if you have a problem with the battery in your sled, don't go and buy a new one until you've watched this video. Because we're going to talk about charging batteries, we're going to talk about testing batteries, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use to do both. I'm going to do that right after the intro, so stick around. So if you've got a sled or an ATV, sooner or later you're going to run into a battery problem. Batteries are expensive, right? So you want to make sure that the problem is actually the battery before you go out and buy a new one. So typically when you go and try to start your sled and the battery's low, there's going to be a couple of reasons for that. Either the battery itself is defective or just plain worn out. The charging system on your sled may not be doing what it's supposed to do, or you may have a wiring problem and there's something in the sled that's drawing voltage when the sled's shut off. All right, guys, before we get started, there's a couple of terms that would be helpful for you to know, and that's volts and amps. Amp is referring to how much current is going through your circuit, right? Or how many electrons are flowing through it in a given period of time. Volts is the force with which they're flowing through that circuit. Now, if it helps, you can think of the electrical circuit in your snowmobile like the plumbing in your bathroom. To get water to come out of the faucet, you need two things. You need a volume of water, usually measured in something like liters, and you need a certain amount of water pressure to push that water through the pipe. So the amp would be equivalent to the liters of water that are coming through the pipe, and the voltage would be equivalent to the water pressure that's pushing it through. Now, the other term you need to be aware of when you're talking about batteries is cold cranking amps. And that's basically how many amps that battery can deliver at 0 degrees. Now, the reason that's important is that cold temperatures impact the performance of a lead acid battery. I think a lot of us are clear on the voltage part. We know a battery is supposed to be 12 volts, and a lot of our chargers will tell us that. But it's when we get into things like cold cranking amps that some of the testers that I'm going to show you today are going to be really useful. All right, now before you start testing the battery in your sled, it needs to be fully charged. So let's start with charging. There's a ton of different consumer products on the market for charging a battery. The main thing to remember is to get a battery charger that's rated for the same charging rate as the battery, right? So those little batteries that are in snowmobiles or in ATVs, they typically charge at a much lower rate than the battery in your car, right? So if you've got a charger that only sort of puts out 15 amps and it's designed to charge a car battery, they can actually shorten the life of that smaller battery in your sled. So usually on the battery somewhere or on the material or the packaging that came with the battery, it'll tell you what its maximum charge rate is. Now this is a charger that I use. This is a Schumacher charger. The reason I like this one, it has a ton of different options that are handy for me. So you can choose between standard lead acid battery, absorbent glass mat, or gel type batteries. You can choose between the 3 amp charge for the smaller sport batteries or that 15 amp charger for an automotive or marine battery. It's got reverse polarity protection. If you hook the clamps up wrong, it won't charge. It will auto detect the voltage in the battery too, which is really good because then it'll charge it, and once it's charged, it'll switch into a maintenance mode. So again, it's a lot more than you need just to charge a battery on a sled, but it's really handy for a lot of different uses. But again, the main thing is make sure whatever charger you buy is rated for the type of battery that you're charging. The other thing you can buy if you have something like a snowmobile or an ATV or something that sees seasonal use is one of these little maintenance chargers. So these put out a really low amperage charge, and they're meant to be left on the battery during the storage season. Now the other thing that's kind of cool with these, they usually have 2 methods of connection. So they got your typical clamps like you see on a battery charger. That can disconnect. And then it also comes with this set of ring terminals, and it's protected with a fuse. So you basically mount this on your snowmobile and you leave it there, and then you have this little plug that's got a cap to protect it from moisture, and then you just plug your sled in when you're not riding it, and then you keep a low constant charge on the battery. All right, if you're going to talk about charging a battery, you have to talk a little bit about safety. And don't roll your eyes, guys, because these are real risks. So firstly, the battery is full of acid. We know that. The chances that you're going to drop a battery or that it's going to blow up are pretty slim, but if you get sulfuric acid in your eyes, the results are obvious. So just take a second, put a pair of safety glasses on, wear gloves if you're handling batteries. The other thing to remember is explosion risk. Now, obviously, batteries don't explode left and right. There's one in every car in your street. But so the battery itself is not explosive, but hydrogen is. If you've ever heard of the Hindenburg. And a cloud of sulfuric acid propelled by exploding hydrogen, probably not as much fun as it sounds. So when you're charging a battery, it produces hydrogen, right? When you put current through water, it produces hydrogen. So if that hydrogen accumulates somewhere and then it's ignited with a spark, the results are pretty obvious. So a couple of things to remember. Make sure that you're loosening the vent caps on the battery. There's usually a little vent on the side of the battery that comes with a vent cover. You take that off and throw it out. You never put it back on, and that'll let the battery vent while it's charging. Charge the battery outside or in a really well-ventilated area. Don't charge it next to your campfire. All right, because it's really important, we don't want any sparks around that battery. It's important that you connect the charger properly. So we're going to connect the red or positive clamp on the charger to the positive terminal on the battery, and the black or negative clamp on the charger to the negative terminal of the battery. The battery is always going to be marked with a plus or a minus. Now, some guys will tell you if the battery is in the vehicle to put the negative clamp on ground instead of the battery. What's a lot more important is that you don't plug the charger in or turn the charger on until you've connected it. The main thing is always read and follow all the instructions that came with that charger. All right, so now I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use to diagnose battery and electrical problems on the sled. These are just the tools I use. There's a ton of different stuff on the market. Now, the first thing that you guys should all have, if you've got an older sled and you like to work on it yourself, is a multimeter. So this is not a battery diagnostic tool. You can check the voltage with it. But if you want to find out if there's something drawing that battery down or any other electrical problem, these are a must-have. Most of the questions that I get on the channel are related to electrical problems. So my grips aren't working, my headlights aren't working, my fuel gauge isn't working. Ask me anything, guys. I love it when I get your questions, and if I can help you out, I will. But an electrical problem is pretty hard to figure out just with a message on my channel. These will let you test resistance. Then that's what you need to do if you want to check if your sending unit is working properly. Continuity is a huge help if you're trying to hunt a problem down. So continuity, basically, you put, when you touch these probes together, they beep. So what that means is if I put one on one end of a wire and one on the other and it doesn't beep, there's a break in the wire. Yeah, so there's just a lot of uses for this. I'm actually going to do a video just on using a multimeter, but they're definitely a must-have. The next thing you should have if you're testing batteries is a load tester like this one. This is an inexpensive one. There's a lot of different ones around. I think this was $50 or something like that. So basically, you connect this to your battery after you've charged it. The first thing it's going to tell you right away is whether you have your 12 volts or not. Then you're going to press and hold this button. Basically, it simulates starting. So it's got a big carbon filament that puts a certain amount of resistance on that circuit. So you hold that down for 10 or 15 seconds. You'll see how far down that needle drops. And if it's down below green, it'll tell you whether that battery is weak or bad and needs to be replaced. Okay, this is another super useful diagnostic tool that I have. This will give you a little bit more specific information than that load tester will. This was under $50 on Amazon. There's lots of these on the market, so you have a look for, just look for battery testers. So basically, connect this to the battery. I'm going to select how many cranking amps that battery is supposed to have. This will actually run a bunch of different tests, but I usually use it for cranking amps. So somewhere on that battery, it's going to tell you how many cold cranking amps your battery is supposed to have. You'll select that, you'll hit enter and run the test. It'll tell you how many volts it has, how many cranking amps it has. It'll even give you a percentage for how much of that battery is left. So really, really handy tool to have. So I'm probably going to do another video on this, but the other thing, all three of those tools, the multimeter, the diagnostic tool, and the load tester, they'll all let you test the charging system in your sled or your car. And that's really easy because all you need to know for that is voltage anyway. All right, guys, so that's it. Those are the tools that I use. I'd love to hear what you guys use. Do you have any of these tools, or do you use something different? Post something in the comments below. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, if you found it interesting or entertaining, or you learned something new, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel and you like videos just like this one, hit subscribe, click the bell icon, you get notified whenever I post a new video. Until next time, I'm David Clark. Thanks for taking the time to watch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to today's video. So listen, if you have a problem with the battery... Now, there's another term that you need to know when you're talking about batteries, and that's cold cramping. So I always take the batteries out of the vehicle and I charge them, and it's basically the red clamp on the charger or the